If you're coming back from our Age of Ultron review, be aware that our new name is Previewed Review.
We'd like to apologize to Trailer Trash because we did use the name Trailer Trash, and that was purely an innocent mistake. We're so sorry.
We apologize for that.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Will Cabrera.
And I'm Gerry Brennes.
Welcome back. If you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this until after you've watched Daredevil, because we like you, and I hope you like us. This is Previewed Review of Daredevil. Gerry has finally watched the show after all of my nagging. So my first question to you is, did you or did you not like Daredevil?
I did. I loved it. Years ago when Smallville was just first... Daredevil is nothing like Smallville. Daredevil is nothing like anything that has come out of that Smallville, like, camp or whatever.
Formula.
But anyway, back then, and I am a Superman fan, back then, I was following Smallville from the beginning, and I kept following it even after it started to suck. It's just one of those things that happens, right? I mean,
So like season 4.
I think it was sucking from like a while, you know, at the beginning. But anyway, so I checked out Daredevil, and yeah, it's great. I like it a lot. Daredevil
Is just on a different playing field entirely. I agree with you there. I wish you would have seen the other superhero shows, so we have a basis of how to compare and contrast something.
That's a good point, because I think we've talked about this. I like all this stuff, but I haven't seen nearly as much as you have. So I think that it's interesting to see some of your perspective where you can compare, and mine where I can't compare to anything except for
well, you have
up here.
You have the Smallville basis, and yeah. I gave up on Smallville around season 5.
Right.
Like, I think once they tried to do the whole Justice League on TV, I think they lost me.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I'm a big Oliver Queen fan. I like Oliver Queen. I love his year one, almost as much as Batman's year one, which are fantastic comic books. Daredevil feels like a year one story.
Oh yeah.
So Daredevil, it's a guy in like Under Armour, in black Under Armour with a black mask, and he's struggling to not die. And it separates Daredevil from the rest of the shows because it sets up from the beginning, this is not a Disney property insofar as you're not going to have Care Bears jumping out of windows, shooting, magical rainbows of love and understanding at his enemies. He's going to get in there and he's going to break bones. Mm-hmm. And the second episode's hallway fight scene is just that. You hear the utter destruction that he's causing, and you're just like, keep going. Go on.
Yeah.
So for me, I enjoyed Daredevil. What do you think stood out the most for you as far as, like, let's say the first 4 episodes, before we ever met the Kingpin?
Mm-hmm. Well, from the first episode, I'm not going to really be too interested in action or any fighting scenes unless it's worth it. I mean, yeah, big surprise, right? But it's the truth. But it's cool because this is a show that lets you enjoy the action, because when there's no action, it's good. In fact, there's plenty of fighting. Like, every episode, I think, has some fighting, at least. But I remember there being pretty long stretches where it's character development or, story moving along, whatever. So that's cool. So it's like, oh yeah, I don't feel like I'm an idiot when I just sit there enjoying him punching, life out of guys.
Right.
But anyway, from the very pilot, and that scene, that sort of, Batman Begins scene by the docks, I thought that the choreography was pretty good. It didn't feel cheap at all.
Daredevil did have moments where a friend of mine lovingly referred to as they forgot to turn on some of the lights. Daredevil was a little dark for him.
What do you mean, like literally, like visually dark?
Visually dark, yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yeah,
And for me, it fits the style of the show because Matt Murdock is blind, technically. So giving us a little bit of that blindness brought me closer into the show.
Yeah.
What did you find about the show's darkness? Was it too much for you?
No. I mean, there was moments where I noticed it was kind of dark. And I don't think it was, too much. Putting us in his place as a blind man. Stuff like the hallway scene in the first few episodes or whatever.
For the second episode, yeah.
And many other times where similar cinematography takes place, where it's... I like stuff like that because that makes me feel like I'm somehow being pulled into that, like I'm not sure what's going on.
Right.
Exactly, but I hear it.
One of the things that I enjoyed as a Marvel fan was in the first 4 episodes, they only refer to Wilson Fisk as the employer. So when you finally see him in the gallery,
well, I like the conversation that he has with Vanessa. But
I will say that his little he had little Darth Vader moments where he would be audibly inhaling breath.
Uh-huh.
I think that did bother me a little bit, but I was just like, he's a big guy.
Right.
He's
right.
He's pacing himself.
Right.
But yeah, no, the voice wasn't like a Christian Bale's growl.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the whole. For me. Well, you understood that when you heard him, there was it wasn't resonating with power, but it wasn't a voice of a pushover. It wasn't. You didn't expect like some little like 5'3", 100-pound wet guy to come out and be like, "I'm the kingpin," because you would have been like, "Nah, bro."
Yeah.
No, you ain't.
They really went all the way with his character in terms of. Yeah, we all want to see a villain that's a good villain, and that usually means that if this guy would have just been a bad dude and easy to hate and that's it, then that's not as good as what they gave us, which is really presenting him as much as possible as just another guy who has his own reasons for doing what he's doing. Which has been done a lot, but I feel like they really nailed it pretty well in this show.
Yeah.
You see, like, I think his whole theme is like this pain, right? Where he had a horrible childhood, he did what he did to his dad, and he's really he's huge, and he's powerful, and he's got all this money, and he's done all these bad things or whatever, but the whole thing with his voice and the way he talks, his whole shyness, his timidness, it really shows in the show. It's like I really believe that this guy is super shy, super like reserved, while having gone through the steps that it took for him to get where he is, to be this villain.
Yeah, I like that they made him a human being, and they gave him the entire arc where you could see the two of them almost racing to become who they are. Wilson Fisk doesn't believe that he's a villain in much the same way that Loki and all these other villains of the MCU don't believe they're villains. You believe him when he says that he wants to build a better Hell's Kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
He has the goal to make a better society. He just doesn't do it the way Matt Murdock does it. And so you believe that Matt Murdock, the Daredevil, the devil of Hell's Kitchen, is the bad guy in his world, in his circle, and vice versa, because of the way they're brought together. And I think that is what makes Marvel so much greater to watch as far as character development. Their heroes aren't gods among men. Even Thor isn't a god amongst man. Like, there's a humanity to him that we saw in Age of Ultron. And Matt Murdock, even though he is, this superhuman amongst his other world that he's living in, he's not unbreakable. There are moments where you see him struggling to keep the mission, and he pulls himself up. He's just like, if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I would have liked to have seen more of is the nods to the greater MCU. There are a couple of Easter eggs that if you're paying attention...
Yeah, newspapers.
The newspaper articles about what happened during the first Avengers. The picture of Stan Lee in the police department is by far the weakest Easter egg of them all, and I would have liked to have seen an actual walk-on cameo of Stan Lee or just like a line. But I think if they work a picture of Stan Lee into every one of the Netflix series, then that's okay. That's the established cameo for him.
Sure.
After Wilson Fisk is revealed and the whole Hell's Kitchen gets turned upside down, how do you feel everything snowballs? Did you like it? Did you not like it? How did you feel about the reporter?
Ben Urich.
Yeah,
the journalist.
How do you feel about Ben being killed off? Because I wish he would have stuck around.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked Ben's character. I didn't like to see him go, but at the same time, I felt like, man, they're keeping it real. Kingpin goes after him and is brutally strangles him, or whatever he did. And it makes sense. We really got to see him build up from early on in the series, and I really liked him. And that's the thing. They're really cramming in a bunch of stuff in a really good way, which is why I was saying earlier. It feels like there are long stretches, even though there's tons of action, tons of fighting. There's a lot of fighting,
ninjas,
and then it just and then they still give us a ton of these scenes where these characters are talking to each other. And
the two characters that I didn't like them being written off were Ben and Wesley.
Wesley, yeah.
What happens to Wesley is almost...
It is out of character, no?
A little bit.
For him to have just done that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't... I didn't really... I feel the same way about both characters. It could have easily just been like, okay, so she's like, she can't do it. She doesn't shoot him. That's it. Over. And then who knows what happens after that. But the moment that she picks up the gun, he's trying to play it cool. Like, hey, you really think I would have a loaded gun?
And then bam.
And then she shoots him. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, maybe it was out of character for him to just go at that alone. But you could also argue that there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot. Like, for all the characters. So they're in the hospital. Vanessa's been poisoned. Wesley's like trying to look out for his boss, slash friend, and all that stuff. And he's like, he has a moment. He does have a moment where he decides that he can handle it himself. Yep. He goes off. He makes a mistake, obviously, because he gets shot. And I think that could have been out of character, but that's debatable. And then her taking the action to just go ahead and do it is like, okay. I mean, I think it's a good trade-off.
For me, I think what's lacking in the scene and what would have made it much more poignant for me is, let's say the scene goes as is and Wesley just bluffs. It's like, oh, you think I'd really put a loaded gun in front of you? If she had shot to the side first to see that there is a loaded gun in her hand, and then to have that realization that now she has the power in the room, that would have flown much better for me. Because then I would have been like, oh, she knows now that the tables have turned. And then him trying to backpedal out of that would have served their characters the connection that I wanted. Where it's not that she just shoots him because she's afraid of him. She shoots him because she understands she has the power now. And that gives her a much more compelling twist and fall to the dark side that is revisited in the last episode when she tells Matt, I don't know what the future is going to hold for us. Each of us has our own secrets. So we've discussed what we liked and what we didn't like about Daredevil.
A quick thing that stood out to me about not liking the show is, especially towards the end of the season, like, for example, all this talk about my city, this is my city, and I love this city, and all this city talk. I get it, That's just how the characters are. But it was just too much for me.
So much.
And I can I get it. Like, that is the driving thing behind these characters. It's just that it's so much.
So much.
Would anyone ever really talk like that? Like, it just doesn't seem that way to me.
So you think their idealism was set a little too high for you?
It's not subtle. Like it's just
Okay.
like it's the writing. It's like the city. You know, when in doubt, let's
city.
just have the characters say, you know, let's remind the audience
they're
that the
doing it for the
city,
city.
it's my city,
It's the
and
city.
I love this city.
I think there was a little too idealistic mentality, given the fact that they exist in the universe where Hell's Kitchen was destroyed by the events of the Avengers. Matt Murdock knows he's not alone in the world as far as powered people.
Right.
Are they on a different scale than he is? Yes, because
And I like the presentation of that.
They're global.
This show is really focusing on this one tiny little area of the city, while you do get little moments where even the characters themselves will reference back to stuff that happens in the Avengers.
Yeah.
But you're never wondering like, whoa, like if they really exist in the same world, you know, how come we're only seeing this? And it makes sense because of the way they present it. So
right. For me, one of the things I disliked the most about the show was Foggy. Foggy's character doesn't at all serve a purpose until he finds out Matt Murdock is Daredevil.
I have some issues with Foggy too.
Foggy is the weak link of the cast. Not to say that he's the only weak link. There are other weak links, like the police officers are very two-dimensional, very almost on the borderline of being two-dimensional, but they're really one-dimensional as far as like, oh, we're on the take, you know, we're in Wilson Fisk's pocket, we're bad guys, man. You know, like you expect them to take out Tommy guns and start shooting, you know, 1950s brothels.
Wait, can I say something more about Foggy?
Do it.
I personally didn't see so much of a problem with him in general. Like you said that you didn't really see a purpose for him until he finds out. And I actually felt like when he does find out, and like that whole episode is just him acting like, you know, he's Matt's girlfriend that just found out some big secret. I'm like,
He does
dude,
that. He does
Foggy,
that.
like really, like I mean, fine. And then the writing got very. I didn't like the writing. Like it was very obvious, you know. Like there was nothing about him finding out that Matt was Daredevil.
Yeah.
That seemed like good writing or organic. It just turned into this like by the book, like, okay, now so he's gonna get mad. Now he's gonna ask him, what else do I know about you? And I can't ever trust you again. Blah blah blah. It was all like I wasn't surprised. It was just there.
Towards the end, they did give him the very stereotypical, I feel betrayed, I don't want to talk to you again.
Yeah.
And then 2 episodes later, they're friends.
Right.
I think they played it really, really hokey and really, instead of paving new ground, they kind of played it safe there.
Right.
Sometimes what I didn't like about Daredevil is that most people were good enough. The script wanted to be great, and sometimes it was great, sometimes it was fantastic. The meeting between Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk in the gallery, just watching him just grip his walking stick, wanting to beat the hell out of Wilson Fisk right there and then, and he knows he can't.
Yeah. Oh, we're kind of jumping all over the place because we're talking about stuff we like and whatever.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, after a certain point, you know, because this whole thing with Daredevil being Catholic, and you have to have these prerequisite scenes where he's going to confession or whatever, right? I like the choice that they made to have the priest that he regularly visits to be one of these priests that is not like necessarily like by the book. Anyway, I think that it was cool to have Matthew have these conversations with the priest where the priest will say something like, well, so Matthew asks him if he believes in the devil, and the priest doesn't just say yes.
Yeah.
Of course he exists.
I love that dialogue.
I like the fact that he gives him this whole story, and in the end, his answer is basically, yes, I do believe it. But he gives him his own journey about how when he was younger, he thought of it as more of a concept.
Right.
And he's not saying he doesn't believe that anymore. He's really given this whole broad answer, which I think is just perfect. You know, for the situation, it's perfect for the priest to give him that kind of answer.
Is there anything leering that we forgot?
One more dislike.
Oh, okay.
One more dislike. So I was really, I kind of looked ahead and saw that the last episode was called Daredevil. So I was like, and of course you see like the screenshot, that the cover for the whole series is him wearing the Daredevil outfit. Yeah. So you know it's going to happen. And I wasn't surprised that it's not going to happen until the last episode, which is cool. I think the suit looks pretty good.
Okay.
I don't really have a problem with the suit.
I'll tell you that I do have a problem with the little horns.
Mm-hmm.
I like the devil horns, but I understand with the new redesign of the suit,
Yeah.
those horns are
Sure.
cool.
Yeah. I say that I'm okay with the new suit, with the suit, a little hesitantly, but I can't really say I don't like it because I mean if you were okay with putting up with him like just wearing like the ninja mask and the whatever for the whole season, then what's the big deal? Like you have to think real world terms, and if he's actually gonna wear something like this and it doesn't look super like cool like every second, every frame, you can't really expect that. It is what it is. I just feel like the moment that like so he comes to the guy that makes the suit for him. When the process first starts happening, which is like maybe 2 or 3 episodes away from the end, that was okay. I feel that the moment where you see, okay, so it looks like he's actually going to go back to the guy and he's going to give him the suit finally, which is in the final episode. It was felt a tad like shoved in there, a little tad rushed, but not a big deal. So he puts it on, right? From the moment he gets the suit and puts it on, I feel like all of what they had achieved in this show. I mean, there's little cheesiness throughout the whole season, here and there, but nothing too crazy. That's part of what I liked about the show, is that it felt very like a good TV show, which was presented, by the way, kind of like a crime drama, which was cool too. But all of that they had achieved to remain as far away from cheesiness as possible for a TV show kind of went out the window the moment he puts that thing on. Because suddenly, like, the music is not... I like the theme song for, like, the opening credits.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. It's following, of course, a whole minimalist thing that has become super popular, like with Hans Zimmer and all that stuff. I don't have a big problem with that, but it's pretty cool. The music for the show in general is not super strong for me. Like, it's kind of generic superhero nowadays or whatever. But then it really ramped up the generic stuff for that last episode once he puts on the suit. I feel like it sounded like Hans Zimmer. Like, it just sounded like the Dark Knight music, and that wasn't cool with me.
Okay.
And then that fight between Daredevil and Fisk is very 50-50 for me. Thought it was cool because you get to see how Fisk is this like massive dude that has some serious like power behind him. But then once this happened a few times, you notice how there's certain actors who never got too beat up, even though they were in scenes where they were supposed to be getting like punched to death. But it wasn't that convincing when we see Daredevil kicking him around. Like, it just wasn't. It just felt like, I don't know. It wasn't brutal enough for what they were trying to achieve there.
I think for me, there's a little more suspension of disbelief, only because they are comic book characters. So
Sure.
I think Wilson Fisk could take a little bit more of a beating than a regular person.
No. I'm not doubting that. What I'm saying is the way it looked wasn't very convincing.
Okay.
It wasn't convincing compared to how brutal some of the other fights were throughout the whole season. You can tell that, yeah, so this guy's being punched pretty hard by Daredevil, and you know Daredevil has what it takes to like do some serious damage. So Fisk can take a beating, fine, because he's a huge tough guy. It just wasn't shown to me very well, and then the whole like final blow that Daredevil gives him, where it's like he just kind of stands back and he goes in for this final blow, and it just didn't look good for me.
Okay. Closing arguments. Do you endorse Daredevil? Would you endorse Daredevil to your friends?
Absolutely. Everyone should watch it if you're interested.
Your thoughts on the rest of the MCU now that Daredevil's a part of it?
I really like the fact that they presented it in just the right way, so you can believe that it does take place in the same world as the MCU, but it's like you said, it's just like a lower tier character,
right.
Just enough, and you can clearly see that they're really just focusing on this one little neighborhood of New York City, and it's kind of like, here's what's happening on the lower levels, while all this other crazy stuff is happening up on the top, and it's believable. I think it's good.
Do you think we need Daredevil in movies like the Civil War that's coming out? Do you think we need him to make an appearance in the Infinity Gauntlet? Do you think I guess what I'm asking is, do you think the higher level MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, needs to have more of an influence from what's happening underneath in the slums of TV land?
I think it could work, but in the same way that they acknowledge the bigger events in the show without showing anything else but what's happening in the Daredevil world, we could also say it could also work perfectly fine, and I think it's probably the best thing for whenever we do see some of these movies coming out, where it's just there might be an acknowledgement of the smaller stuff going on, as like, look at all these things that are happening, and this is one of them. But you don't have to bring him into the mix visually and stuff like that. You know, I don't think that would.
Like, you think it's enough if they show like a business card of Nelson and Murdoch?
Look, the best
avocados at law.
Yeah, the best thing really is always going to be for someone out there to get creative and show us something that we're not expecting. And if it works, that would be perfect. That's the perfect thing. Do I think it's necessary? No. I mean, I think it wasn't necessary for them to try to do more than what they did in terms of referencing on the show. And in the same way, they don't really need to bring that too much out in the movies.
Okay. Any closing remarks before we wrap it up?
No. I think
we discussed a lot.
I think we discussed a lot.
If you guys have enjoyed us discussing Daredevil, please leave a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. Thank you for following us. I know that means a lot to Gerry. This is Gerry Brenes.
And that's Will Cabrera.
And we are Variational Variety. And thank you. And we'll see you in the next video.